Okay, welcome to the first tutorial. This tutorial will cover displaying a simple map created using a multidimensional array of integers to basically use that data to go through a list of textures and display them depending on what their tile ID is. This is just the basics of basically the conventions of creating a tile engine. Um, no matter what language you use, Java, C++, C Sharp, it's pretty much the same concept that's used to create tile engines. So here we go. We'll start off by creating a multidimensional array. In C Sharp, creating a multidimensional array is you type in the data, the type. So it could be float, but we're going to use integers. You do open bracket, comma, close bracket, and then like that. Initialize it. And then we're just going to put in here 0 for indexes or IDs for just put a bunch. And then to save time, I'll copy. And as you can see, right now it even kind of looks like a map of numbers. Basically, think of it like this will be a grass tile. Excuse me. This will be a grass tile. 0 will mean grass, so all these, it'll just display a whole map of grass. Now you're probably wondering, oh, textures, how are we going to do that? Well, what you're going to want to look up is Box of Evil. And basically you go to this website, studioevil.com, and they have this, this download. If any of you have followed Nick Ravlin's tutorials, this is pretty much just reinforcing what he went over in his tutorials, but his tutorials are kind of outdated because they were with XNA 3.0, I think. I'm not sure, but because there are some differences between XNA 3.0, 3.1, and XNA 4.0. So you want to download this, and when you download that, what you'll see is you'll find this file, terrain textures, and you're going to want to get all these and put them into the content. So you can add new folder, textures, just drag them all in. So now you get these. Now keep in mind these are pretty massive textures. These are 256 by 256, and they're pretty high quality. So because of that, we're probably going to make our textures in here be 64 by 64 using these, which will scale them down. So it'll be even in finer detail, but yeah. So to do that, create list texture 2D tile textures equals new tile texture 2D. So this will hold our textures. It's basically just a list of textures. Now we got to add textures to that. So remember that these numbers are going to be the index in this list of the image that we want. So it really does matter what order you add the textures to, what order you add the textures into that to, because this will determine what texture is drawn. So if we want 0 to mean grass texture, we're going to have to add that first. So content.load texture2d textures se free grass texture. Now, to be honest, you can rename these. I'm just going to keep them like that because, yeah, whatever. And now here's where we're going to go over the draw method. Now, like always, when working with 2D, pretty much anything in that matter, in XNA, you have to add this begin and end. So just get that out of the way. And then here is where we're going to do a for loop to loop through this multidimensional array, our map. And basically, I'll explain this in a second. Plus x equals 0. So right here, this int y is less than map.getLength, and what this is doing is basically, if you look at this, you have rows and columns for each of these, and basically what this is doing is it's looping through all those rows and columns. The interesting thing is, right here, you'd probably think, wait, if we're going with y, shouldn't that be the second? Because usually, the x comes first and then y. But in this, if you think about it, y, the get length 0 is basically getting the height of it, kind of. So the first row is the y, and then each of these indexes are the x's. So that's the second part of that. That's this part, all the little cells inside. So that's basically the convention of that. So just always remember it's flipped. So if you ever try doing y and doing get length 1, just remember it's flipped. So in here, we need the index, which will basically just be, remember, map y comma x, because you want the row and then the index in that row. So then we're gonna do a texture 2D texture, because we have to get the specific texture from each index. We have to figure out what texture we want based on the index from the map, and then we just pass that index. There we go. And now for fetch.draw texture. Now here is where I have to explain this. Basically, it's the position that we draw these is basically going to be incremented based on this loop. So of course the first tile, we're going to draw it at 0, 0, the origin, and that makes sense because you're going through 0, you're at the 0th index in that 0th row. So basically, we're going to need to use the integers in this loop, the indexes in this loop, and times it by basically the width or the height of each tile, because we're going to be moving them across the screen, drawing them across the screen, and we don't want like space in between them or to stretch out the textures. So for me, I'm going to do 64 as the width and the height, just so you can see, because this is 1600 by 900 screen, so it's going to be, if I did 32 by 32, trust me, it would be small and hard for you to see. So then the width, height, close that off, colored white for now. And then we hit draw. Ta-da! Grass. So basically, as you can see, it's not that much code if you think about it, and that's the basis of it. But if you think about it, there's not much you can do besides draw the map with that. I mean, you have the indexes, but like if you wanted collision, you'd have to make another one, and you'd be controlling two different multidimensional arrays. It'd be kind of obnoxious. So what we're gonna do to set this up for a later tutorial, we're gonna create some classes that are basically gonna help us actually create a functional engine. So right here, we're gonna create another class, call it mapCell. So if you think about it, we're gonna have a multidimensional right now, just integers. We're gonna have map cells because the whole map is pretty much a map of cells, where you're drawing these textures, and each cell should have information about it. A collision ID, a tile ID for what you're going to draw, like textures, and a collision ID to know what type of collision, because You could do impassive, just regular impassable collision, or you could do collision where a character gets damaged, etc., etc. So for that, we're just going to start off with a simple constructor that's going to take an int tile ID and then also a collision ID. And what we're going to want are some properties. So just quickly do this. A good thing I like to do is create regions, which help me organize my code. You see, regions, you do that. And that's how you declare a region. So we want a tile ID, just some automated getters and setters. You don't have to actually do anything because we don't have anything to actually return. It'll automatically generate it when you use it. Same for the collision ID. Now, in here, what we're going to do is go, oh, look at that. Tile ID is equal to tile ID. Collision ID is equal to collision ID. So now we have this set up. So now each of these is actually going to be a map cell when we go and create our tile layer. So why don't we do that right now? We're going to create another class which is going to be called tile layer. So basically a tile layer, like before, is going to have a map. Now what is the map going to be? It's not going to be a multidimensional integer array. Like I said, it's going to be a map cell multidimensional array. So now, constructor for a tile layer, you can have that. And what we're going to do is pass it a existing map for that, and you also need to pass it. This is just for purposes of this tutorial for right now. We're actually, in the next tutorial, I'm going to go over loading a tile layer from a text file, which is a much better way to do this than just hard coding it. You never want to actually hard code it. And if you ever create a editor, which currently I'm working on myself, but you'll be able to save the maps in a certain format in the text file, so you can easily load it back into your engine. So this is existing collision map, because you need these two. This is for the tile IDs, and this is for the collision IDs. They're separated because you can't. It's kind of difficult to determine which is the tile ID if you're just using one integer, right? It's kind of impossible. So what you're going to do is pretty much go, again, do that same loop, but on the existing map. One. Well, first actually, what you want to do is just create a, let's mess that up. Now, you might be wondering, why is that like that? Because first, this hasn't been initialized. It hasn't even been created. It's been declared. So in the first, before we do anything with this, we have to actually initialize it. So we initialize it to a new map cell multidimensional array. But here's the thing, it needs to be the same size as the existing map, because we're going to be putting all the data that's held in these two into this. And this has to also be the same size as that before you even put it in here. So It doesn't really matter about getting the length of that. We just need the length of this. So then we loop through. Technically, you could use map.length, but existing map. You know what? Nah, we'll do this. It makes more sense. And now what we're gonna do is put at map y comma x dot tile ID is equal to. Oh, actually, technically, you don't even need to do that. Map at y comma x equal to new map cell. And now here's the thing. You need to go and get that integer at that same point and the collision integer ID. So there you go. Now using this constructor, you can completely populate this map cell, multidimensional array, this map. So then we need to draw it. Also, don't forget to import stuff. I always do that. Other people probably do too. So now that we have this, what we're going to do is we're actually going to put the begin and end in here, so each layer kind of draws itself without having to worry about putting this in your actual game. So here we go again with this this loop. Zero y plus plus or int x plus 0, x is less than that, 1. Oh, whoa, that would have been bad. So here you go. So now, just like before, you need to get the index. Tile ID. Here's something I forgot. So what are you going to get the textures from? Well, that's a good question. From this. That same list can just be put right in here. Now, here we go. Texture, just like before. New rectangle. So here is where we're gonna quickly create another class, because you don't want to be hard code. You don't want to ever hard code values, and you don't want to be like 64 out of nowhere, out of the blue. So we're just gonna create a quick class. Call it whatever you want. Engine. Engine sounds good because you know what it is. We're gonna create some constant values for the width and height of the tiles. 64 by 64. You can use 32 by 32, or even larger if you want. But I don't know if you want any larger than that. So then, instead of just hard coding these, you can be like tile width. Height. Height. Color dot white. So there you go. So now this is done. Now, one thing is we're gonna have to be able to load textures in here. So that's something we need to create a method for. So here we go. Yeah. So So basically, this right here is a way to load basically a bunch of textures using file names, um, an array of file names. So basically, you'll first create a texture, and then you're going to do a for each loop through. And you're going to go and load each texture and then add it to the tile textures. So there you go. So basically, this is about it for that. So now what you'll be able to do is go and create. We'll get rid of that because we don't need that anymore. Actually, you know what? No. Undo that. What we'll do is layer with new tile using that because it takes one of these anyway. We're going to use that and then create the collision one as well. And again, because they have to be the same size, just copy and paste that in. And now we're getting some errors because clearly that doesn't exist anymore, and we're not going to need that line of code. And none of this exists anymore, nor will we need these. So here we go, no errors as you can see. So load content, we have to load these textures. So pass it content. And the good thing about this param string array file names is all you have to do is just pass it strings. So, and then let's do one more. Bam. And now finally layer dot draw pass it. Oh, no. Pass it. Moment of truth. Boom, there you go. So now this isn't just drawing using an array of just normal integers. These are all map cells. So what you can do using those now is for collision purposes, you can either give each of these map cells its own rectangle, or you can just do a better way, is get a rectangle based on each map cell's position. But we'll go over more of that in another tutorial. But there you go. That is pretty much the very basics. You set up a multi-dimensional array of integers. You go through it, finding each index, getting the texture based on that index, and then displaying that texture on screen. There you go. I hope you found this helpful. I'll be releasing another one soon that will go over loading from a text file, and then we'll move on to collision, which will deal with this map cell a little bit more. So thank you for watching.